Iron Monkey presents the Lazaretto Letters, a found collection of unmailed, handwritten letters from 1922. Episode 4, Madame Iannuzzi. Today's letter is from Maddalena Iannuzzi, addressed to Tommasino Cardasco, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, stamped, sealed, and unpostmarked. Monday, May 29th, 1922. My dear Mina, I've got something to get off my chest. We never do talk much about my mediumship, but tonight, honey, I'm going to speak plain, and I hope you'll listen and try to understand. I know you don't approve of my line of work as a madam, nor spiritualism in general. Ever since you discovered my box of tricks, I could tell by your countenance that whatever belief you had in me went straight out the window. But you love me, and you trust me. That's why I feel I can bare my soul to you in this confession. What I'm about to tell you is a solemn secret, Mina, one that could ruin me if it ever came to light. I'm trusting you utterly to keep this between us. If this letter falls into the wrong hands, well, I dread to imagine the consequences. I swear on my own soul, every word that follows is true, and that these truths are based on my actual experiences. Here is my confession. I fake every seance. Yes, it's true, yet here lies the whole of it. I fake every seance, yet not every seance remains a sham. Let me explain, and listen close. With my own eyes, I have seen objects move on their own, levitate, and appear out of thin air. I've communicated with invisible spirits. I've felt their warm embraces, and I've been violently shoved. I've had them whisper in my ear and scream out loud in a crowded room. With my own eyes, I've seen both beautiful, angelic beings and horrifying, demonic entities. I've seen things I still can't make sense of. And before you say I've been fooled, don't. I'm no one's fool, and I'm not one to be tricked, for I am the trickster. More on that later. After all my years running seances, good ones and bad, I've come to a single conclusion. If the folks around the table don't truly believe, nothing will ever happen. Faith creates reality. Belief allows manifestation. Jesus didn't give sight to the blind. It was their belief that restored it. Even Mr. Ford's words ring true. Whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right. That's the heart of it. If you believe you'll speak to spirits, you will. If you don't, you won't. A skeptic shuts the door before the spirits even knock. Now, knowing all this, how does a gal like me make sure the spirits show themselves? 2 ways. The first is to gather a circle of true believers, which is easier said than done. Second, you give the spirits a little help. That's the secret I spoke of. A bit of trickery. You trick the living just enough to make them believe. And once they believe, well, that's when the dead start to play along. But there's the rub. If you get caught in the act, it's a scandal fit for the papers, ruinous. And if you try explaining it the way I'm telling you now, they'll only call it excuses and claptrap. Of course, these little tricks don't guarantee a thing. But if something does happen, if the table tips or a spirit makes itself known, then the tricks were only the match that lit the candle. You can't throw a surprise party without telling a few fibs first, right? If nothing happens, the tricks were only that, tricks. Truth be told, people would rather be fooled and thrilled than sit through a dull evening. Give them excitement and a good story to tell, and they'll go home happy. That's why I never lose sleep over a bit of fakery. Everyone gets what they paid for. Trouble is, spiritualism is crawling with fakes who give us real mediums a bad name. Their entire show is a farce, and when they're caught, it casts a shadow on all of us. Word is that Harry Houdini himself is out to expose the trickery. Let him expose the charlatans and blow out their candles, just as long as he doesn't extinguish us all in the process. A gifted medium like myself with faithful participants will generally stir up something memorable. It also helps if the ground itself is friendly to spirits, or if the paying folks have a certain sensitivity. Lucky for me, the Lazarettos got both, in spades. The island where I've pitched my tent is teeming with spirits, all too eager to make themselves known. Maybe it's all the suffering that's soaked into this place, the fever wards, the dying prayers, or maybe it's something older. I've heard stories of souls haunting this rock long before the hospital ever stood here. Anyhow, this island's a real gravy train. Every Saturday night they throw a grand carnival on the grounds, and yours truly is one of the main attractions. They plaster my name on the posters and pack the tents, so I've been booked near every night. I hold scattered private sittings throughout the week as well, and every Friday night, several of the nurses book me for long sessions at their quarters. They're mad for the spirit talk and have even formed a little club around it. They call it the Caduceus Coven. Adorable. They're a lively bunch, and under different circumstances, I think we'd be friends. But I've got to keep up the mystique of mystery. You understand. Still, when I want to drop the act and have a proper laugh, I go knock back a drink with the carny folk. They're my kind of people, rough, loud, and honest about it. This brings me to Mary, one of the nurses here on the Lazaretto. There's something about that girl that caught my eye right off. She's young and sweet, with a kind of purity more fitting for a nun. She introduced herself to me and peppered me with questions about ghosts and whether I could really speak to the dead. I told her that I could, and this pleased her. She seemed relieved somehow. I asked why it mattered, but she brushed me off. I invited her to join the other nurses for a séance, but she turned me down flat, stating the church forbade such things. Well, that sounded like a challenge if I ever heard one. So I turned on the charm, pulled off my headscarf, and laid it on thick. You would have gotten a kick out of it. I told her the church made exceptions for investigative purposes. And wouldn't you know, it worked. She came to the sitting that very night, and oh, honey, it was a real corker. When Mary entered the room, she was timid as a mouse. She was jittery and obviously afraid of what was to come. The light-hearted chatterbox I met was replaced by a frightened little lamb. The other girls were in fine spirits, laughing and whispering, which helped calm her some. I had them take their seats around the table and sit quiet for a spell, just to still the air. Then I said a few prayers to steady the mood. That seemed to ease Mary. I could see her shoulders drop a little. I began the seance with an invocation and had the gals repeat the incantations after me.
Anime perdute, ascoltateci. Anime perdute, ascoltateci.
This helps to draw the spirit energy closer. Normally, this is where I'd give the table a little nudge with my knee just to set the mood. But before I so much as twitched, the thing started to tremble on its own. I felt it first under my fingertips, like a vibration. Then it began to rumble, and then to shake. Then, before our eyes, the table began to lift. Slow at first, then with a speed and strength I've never seen. I've watched plenty of table tipping in my time, but it usually comes at the grand finish of a long, lively sitting. This started almost at once. I looked around, thinking maybe one of the gals was playing me for a fool, but every hand was plain to see resting light on the tabletop. And still it rose, higher than any knee could manage, up to our chins, our faces, above our heads. It lifted so high that our arms were stretched all the way up, and I had to whisper, "Keep calm, girls, steady now." But inside, my heart was pounding. The table kept climbing till I was nearly lifted off my chair, hanging by my fingertips like some circus act. My backside started to rise from my chair until all at once, the table came crashing down between us with a thunderous crack. The spell broke in an instant. The girls shrieked, then laughed, chattering all at once like schoolgirls. I had to raise my voice to settle them. "Compose yourselves," I said. "We're not done yet." Luckily, they're a well-trained bunch and quieted soon enough. I started the seance again, leading them through the invocation, though a few still stifled giggles. We spoke the words together, low, steady, rhythmic, and after a while, the room took on that thick, heavy hush again. That's when I noticed Mary. She wasn't speaking. Her eyes were closed, her head tilted back, mouth slack, as though she dozed off. The girls beside her saw it too. Her hands slipped loose from theirs, her fingers bending back so far, I thought they'd snap. Her face twisted just for a moment in something like pain, but then smoothed out again, calm, like she was asleep. That's when everything turned. Mary's breathing grew deeper, exhaling with gravelly, rattling breaths that made the hairs on my neck stand up. It was animalistic and guttural. Then came the smell. At first, it was faint, like damp earth. Then it hit us full force, a rotten stench, thick and foul, the kind you get when something's died and been left to bloat. Almost as one, we all drew back, hands to our faces, gagging in disgust. And then she jerked, a short, intense type of fit, like she'd been struck by a jolt of current. It froze us all in our seats. It lasted only a few moments. Then she settled once again into her chair, head tipped back, breathing soft, as if asleep. We all breathed out at once, thankful the spell, or whatever it was, had passed. But that's when things turned queer, in the truest sense of the word. Keep in mind, the room was lit by just one candle, so it took our eyes a moment to catch up to what we were seeing. At first, none of us could agree. Rita swore Mary was fading away, like smoke. Gertie thought she was smoldering or burning, and me, God help me, I thought she had snakes in her hands. Then it became clear to me. From the centers of her palms, a soft, shining substance poured forth, thick and twisting, like silky yarn unspooling itself in the air. It writhed upward in long, white ribbons, faintly glowing like living smoke. We sat spellbound as it climbed to the ceiling and spread out in all directions, filling the top of the room with a thick, pillowy cloud. What seemed like small, silent bursts of lightning flashed inside the growing cloud. Pink and purple lights were twinkling in the manifestation. The rancid smell was long gone and replaced with a sweet smell, similar to spun sugar at a fair. It was truly all so magical. This beautiful event had a hypnotizing effect on us all. We were all mesmerized by the wonder of it. We sat there, transfixed, eyes upturned, till the impossible happened. Without a sound of warning, the clouds split open and a rain came pouring down. Warm, heavy drops struck our faces, our hands, our dresses. It drenched us in seconds. I gasped in horror. It wasn't water. The taste hit first, sharp and metallic on the tongue. It was blood. A cloudburst of blood rained down upon us from a sealed room on a cloudless night. Then all hell broke loose. The girls screamed, clutching at me, chairs scraping and tumbling in the dark. The tempest extinguished the candle with a hiss, and the room vanished into blackness. The ladies were grabbing at me and knocking chairs over in the darkness. I could hear them stumbling, sobbing, someone hammering at the door, shaking the handle till it rattled in its frame. And then, blessedly, a click. The switch flipped, and light flooded the room. We froze. To our shock, Everything was dry. Our clothes, our hair, and the floor were all dry as dust. The ceiling was clean, the air still. No blood, no cloud, no trace of anything. Other than the knocked-over seance table and chairs strewn about, there was no evidence that anything happened at all. And Mary, sitting just as before with her hands in her lap, head tipped back, breathing, soft as a babe's. At this point, I had to loudly take charge and order the ladies to calm themselves as Mary was still under a spell. They complied and were relieved as the light restored a bit of calm. I told them to put the room right and keep the silence, but they couldn't help whispering among themselves. I don't blame them, as this was a truly remarkable experience, even for myself. It was important that Mary be awakened in peace, not chaos. I instructed the ladies to take their seats, hold their chatter, and say nothing. I took Mary's hand, stroked her brow, and spoke to her in a low tone, attempting to awaken her from her trance. After some time, she abruptly jolted awake, giving us all another startle, this time causing some welcome giggles. Her face looked as young and fresh as a cherub that had just woken from an afternoon nap. She blinked at us and said, "Good morning." The gals erupted with laughter, but this time I let them have it. They needed the release. I did too, if I'm being honest. When the room settled, I turned to Mary and asked her what she remembered. She smiled and rubbed her eyes. I remember the table lifting and falling, then resuming the incantations, but I must have drifted off to sleep. I'm so sorry. Did I miss anything? The girls snickered, and I had to hush them with a look. No, dear, I told her. That was the showstopper. Nothing more after that. The ladies traded glances, wide-eyed, but held their tongues. Mary rose, drained from the experience, and a little unsteady on her feet, and yawned like a child past her bedtime. I thanked her kindly, walked her to the door, and told her she ought to turn in. She didn't argue, gave me an unexpected hug, then shuffled down the hall like a sleepwalker. I shut the door behind Mary and turned to the others. Not a word to her, you understand? I told them. She's still delicate from the trance. If you tell her about the occurrence, you might crack her clean in two. They nodded, but I could see they didn't buy it. And truth be told, I didn't care, so long as they kept quiet. The truth is, I can't afford to frighten Mary off. She might be useful to me. You see, getting a good manifestation takes everything I've got. The right people, the right place, the right mood. And even then, it's a devil of a lot of work. A proper sitting can run 2 hours before you see anything worth the price of admission. By the end, I'm half dead myself, and the rest of the time I'm sleeping it off. Time is money, and shorter sittings mean fuller purses. But I want to give them their money's worth, so my sessions are rarely brief. And tonight, that was a show. The best I've ever seen. And it wasn't even mine. The whole thing came on in 10 minutes flat. You see where I'm going with this, don't you? That girl Mary is a natural, a born medium, and she hasn't the faintest notion. If I can take her under my wing, the possibilities are endless. I'll pay her a visit come morning. Wish me luck, darling. This could be the start of something grand. I'll update you on my rise to fame. Yours, as always, Lena. The Lazaretto Letters, a found collection of unmailed, handwritten letters from 1922. Produced and distributed by Iron Monkey. To share your reflections, lend your aid, or explore the mysteries of the Lazaretto Letters, visit Iron Monkey at enterthemonkey.com. Thank you for listening.